In this lecture, let's talk about the replacements for var, which are let and const. So let's replace the var keyword with let right here. And from here, let's run this code and see. This fixes the issue we had with the var keyword because unlike var, let is block scoped. And hence for each iteration of for loop, a new I variable is created. So the closure of the set time out holds the reference to the variable specific to that iteration block only. So every time we use let, we can expect the right behavior. Okay. Now here, even if I try to access this I outside of this for loop, console.log I won't be able to do that. It says the I is not defined. Now, if you have a variable I outside of this block, that is here, which means it's gonna get created in this outer scope, and if in the same scope I try to redefine the same variable, I still get error. It won't let me redefine the same variable if I have already defined that. Rather, it lets me only modify the value of that already defined variable. So I can just remove this to have a declaration, and I can just go with assigning a value, reassigning a value. And that's how it should be, right? Okay, now let's talk about const. Like the let, this const guy also believes in the block scope. So if I have a block of code having a constant declared using const, my const is u, and if I try to access it outside of the block, my constant, and when we run this, what we see is this. It says my constant is not defined. So the outer scope is not able to access this block scoped constant. Right. So this is how let and const resolve the issue with the var keyword. But in case of let lets us modify the value of already defined variable. But const is for defining a constant. So once you have assigned a value to your constant, it cannot be modified or changed. So if I try to change the value of my constant, it says assignment that it errors with saying that assignment to const variable. That is, we cannot reassign anything to a constant. So it simply doesn't let us do so. So wherever we are sure that a variable must not change, we can declare it with const to guarantee and clearly communicate that fact to everyone. But still, one thing to highlight here is that the const protects only the reference to the assigned object. It does not protect the object itself. So if I have, let's say, a list here having, let's say, you and always, these two items in my list, and now if I want to remove this always from my constant, I can pop it out always, and if I add something else, push, never, and then if I see what my constant is holding, my constant, so it says you never, which means it was not able to protect that object. It's only holding on to the reference to the object. Still, you can still change the object, right? So if your use case is to really protect the whole object, then you will definitely have to freeze the object using this freeze method. Now, if I run this same code, let me just comment this out, and now see, it is not going to let us make changes to the freezed object. But this also is a shallow freeze, which means if we have one more level of nesting inside this list, then this freeze will not be an help for us. We will have to manually write the code to freeze every layer, or we might choose to go with a library. So that's how it works. So this was all about usage of var, let, and const. You must never use var. Instead, if it's a constant, use const. But if it is something that's gonna get modified, just like this I in this for loop, you cannot use const with that, right? If I run this code, you guys know what's gonna happen. It's gonna say assignment to a constant variable. We are incrementing the constant I in each iteration. And it naturally won't let us modify or increment the value of I at the end of the iteration, right? Because it's a constant. If we were to modify the value of I, then we have to use let, right? So this is all about let, const, and var, how we can use them. Actually, we cannot use var, or we must not use var from now on. We must go with either const if it's a constant, and let if we're gonna modify the value later, right? So this was all for this lecture. See you guys there in the next one.